Thanks to Baron of Dice, Grey Matter Gaming, and Monument Hobbies for sponsoring this video. The World Eaters are one of the game's newest full factions, releasing late in 9th edition. Though they've had strong moments in 10th, they remain limited by their small range and single detachment. Much like the Leagues of Votann, picking up a second way to play is a big deal for them because their toolkit is already so narrow. Today we double the amount of detachments available to the World Eaters with the Vessels of Wrath. If you're more into detailed descriptions of gore-soaked warfare, head on over to goonhammer.com and check out our written companion piece. Link in the description. Detachment Rule: Wrath of Khorne. At the start of the battle round, after activating Blessings of Khorne, you can pick one or more models from your army, including ones in transports, to gain the Vessel of Wrath keyword. You can pick from World Eaters characters, except for epic heroes, or the champion models for either type of 8-bound, Khorne Berserkers, or World Eaters Terminator units, up to a maximum number depending on the game size. For your average Strike Force game, it's going to be 3. Until the end of the battle round, you can pick an additional Blessing of Khorne from among those you haven't already selected, which will apply to all Vessel of Wrath units in your army, in addition to any that were already active. This doesn't seem to require you to choose something you could have gained via your roll, so feel free to slam that advance and charge button on 3 units per turn as you like. Although you can't use this on Karn the Betrayer or the Lord Invocatus, you can use it on the champions of the units they join, letting them get the benefits as well. Ironically, Angron can't benefit from this. Losing out on army-wide +1 strength and +1 attack on the charge is a big deal, but the key to why you take this detachment is consistency. The ability to guarantee advance and charge for 3 of your units in any given turn is huge. And in those turns where you manage to roll it naturally, you'll have plenty of options to choose from, and can regain some of that lost power by taking lethal or sustained hits instead. This also makes it way less important to have icons on objectives to boost your rolls during the game, since you know you can always get the ability you need the most. You're going to be surprised to learn that most of the enhancements are about doing things in melee. You also might be surprised to learn they're pretty good. Arch Slaughterer gives you +1 AP on melee attacks and +1 damage if you're a Vessel of Wrath. This is basically your replacement for the Berserker Glaive, which is more or less a must-take in the Berserker Warband detachment. Trading out strength for AP isn't the best exchange, but given that you aren't combining that strength bonus with +1 from the Berserker Warband detachment bonus, it's not as important here as it was, since you aren't going to strength 9 with the Master Executions. That said, going to AP 3 is very valuable, and you'll want this just as much on your Master Executions. Vox Diabolus has you roll a d6 every time you kill an enemy model in melee, and on a 4-up you gain a command point, or a 3-up if you're a Vessel of Wrath. It might seem pricey, but it's a really good value when you consider that killing 3 models or less guarantees you'll score an extra command point. The Avenger's Crown lets you fight on death on a 2-up. Very solid. Gateways to Glory lets a Demon Prince or mounted model move through walls as long as they aren't falling back. This does a lot to make the Demon Prince playable, and can be good on a Juggernaut Lord as well. The 6 stratagems here are heavily combat focused. 3 are used in the fight phase, while another 2 are used on getting into combat or chasing down a unit trying to run. They're all priced at 1 command point. Aspire to Infamy lets you give a unit of Berserkers or Jackals +1 strength and AP in melee if they're near a character. Berserkers absolutely need this, as AP2 is a key missing component to their combat effectiveness, and it does a lot more for them than +1 strength. Overshadowed by None gives you rerolls to wound against enemy vehicle or monster units, and that's a solid buff on a Master of Executions looking for any way to get rerolls for his devastating wounds. Gory Dedication lets you sticky an objective after you kill an enemy model on it. Letting units move on from sitting on objectives is a helpful capability for an army that wants to get up and punch stuff. It's not quite as good as being able to sticky an objective on death, but having an alternative option as you move through an objective is pretty good, and you only have to kill 1 model. Punish the Craven forces enemy units to take a desperate escape test when they fall back from you, and at -1 if they're battle shocked. This is more of a threat than something you'll actually want to use. It's the kind of thing you mention to an opponent to play mind games, making them too risk averse to fall back. Meet with Force lets your units make a Blood Surge move after losing wounds to a shooting attack. A careful opponent will try to play around this, but this is still potentially helpful for catching someone out and getting into combat instead of standing around getting shot. People expect this from Berserkers, but they don't expect it from anything else, and being able to surge with Terminators is a big surprise. Brazen Contempt gives an opponent -1 to wound with their shooting attacks if their strength is higher than your unit's toughness, or just -1 to wound if you're a Vessel of Wrath unit. This is potentially very helpful for getting something through a phase without being shot to pieces, especially on something like 8-bound where toughness 6 can help push even heavier weapons to 4s and light stuff to 6s to wound. Overall, this is a good suite of stratagems to have. You've got a pair of great damage output buffs, the ability to make blood surge moves, a defensive buff, and the ability to sticky objectives. There's a lot to like here, and these easily rival the Berserker Warband, and may even be a bit better. The big loss is Apoplectic Frenzy, so you have to make up for that with more measured movement and the guarantee you'll be able to advance and charge on any given turn. The trade of charge bonuses for guaranteed blessings allows you to trade some of your damage output for much more versatility, and guaranteed movement buffs when you need them most, making some strategies more viable just through virtue of their reliability. From a construction standpoint, this doesn't really push you in any crazy directions, but it'll keep you grounded in infantry-heavy armies and away from jackals, as the bonuses only apply to characters and marine units. It's difficult to evaluate this detachment without a ton of test games. It gives up a lot by losing auto-advance 6 inches and +1 strength and attacks on the charge, but it gains a lot of reliability from the additional blessings of Khorne, and the stratagems here are solid. Because of the unit counts and how the champions can be chosen, it does feel like this detachment was made with the 30 Terminator build in mind, though losing an attack and Apoplectic Frenzy with that army is a big loss given that your large bricks only move 5 inches and have 3 attacks with Power Fists. Where you can make that up most effectively is by giving them sustained hits or lethal hits with a blessing and buffing them with Aspire to Infamy or Overshadowed by None. The name of the game here is consistency. While your ability to rocket across the table with a unit and completely kill something is substantially reduced, the upside is that you can get guaranteed movement on a larger number of units. Frenzy only hits 1, while with this detachment, you're basically picking 3 units to give a 3 to 4 inch move buff before the charge. Combine that with 2 inches from your blessings and you're still looking at a 5 to 6 inch average increase in speed, which you can combine with Scout 6 inch and the 9 inch movement on 8-bound to send them 20 inches or so before the charge on the first turn. Any guesses on what these strengths and weaknesses are going to be? Having the ability to automatically apply blessings to 3 units gives you a ton of consistency, and the ability to guarantee advance and charge. Great stratagems give you a good mix of movement, damage, and defensive buffs. The already great Master of Executions is just as great here as he is in the Berserker Warband. But we are losing the +1 strength and attack from the Berserker Warband, which is a big drop in combat effectiveness. As is losing the guaranteed 6 inch advance from Apoplectic Frenzy. Also, your big guy Angron gets nothing out of this detachment. The World Eaters are a tough army to build new detachments for. They really only do the one thing, and while they do it well, coming up with creative new ways for them to do that one thing has gotta be difficult. To its credit, the Vessels of Wrath detachment does give us an interesting new way to play World Eaters, making some interesting trade-offs. Is it worth it? It's hard to say, but it definitely looks like it's worth testing. If you want to learn more about this detachment and look at a sample list, head on over to goonhammer.com for even more info, and while you're at it, you can receive the blessings of the Blood God by supporting us on Patreon. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Baron of Dice, Monument Hobbies, and Grey Matter Gaming for sponsoring this video. I've been Blood McMurder Skulls, reminding you that Khorne doesn't really care where all that blood came from, just that it's coming. Oh, thanks for watching.